So it's my pleasure that, to introduce today's presenters. Today we have Heather Schrotberger, Jessica Haremza, and Dale Walker with us. And we also want to mention Jane Atwater has been also helpful with the work that they're going to be presenting to us today. Heather is the director of Project Eagle, Educare of Kansas City, a program of the University of Kansas Medical Center Department of Pediatrics. Project Eagle is an award-winning early Head Start program located at the Children's Campus of Kansas City in Kansas City, Kansas, and a member of the Educare Learning Network. As the director of Project Eagle, Heather serves as the face of Project Eagle by engaging in positive relationships with key stakeholders, including governing body members, tenant partners in the Children's Campus of Kansas City, community leaders, Project Eagle staff members, and enrolled families and children. She has worked in the early education and early Head Start field for over 14 years and has experience and expertise in program development and implementation. She serves on the board of directors for the Children's Campus of Kansas City, engages in the National Educare Learning Network, and participates in numerous other local collaborations and efforts that further the work of the field of early education and lead to systems of change. Jessica is the site director for Project Eagle Educare of Kansas City and has worked as a master teacher for Project Eagle. She has been working in early childhood education in both a research and practitioner capacity for a decade and is an author on multiple peer-reviewed articles and presentations on infants and toddlers, including topics such as math and science in infant and toddler play, increasing desirable behaviors in the toddler classroom, and increasing toddler compliance with classroom transitions. Prior to joining Educare of Kansas City as a master teacher in 2012, Jessica spent 5 years as the Director of Curriculum and Training at Ballard Community Services. Dr. Walker is currently an Associate Research Professor and Scientist at the University of Kansas, where she also received her Ph.D. in Developmental Child Psychology. Her research addresses early childhood language development and evidence-based intervention with child care providers, early interventionists, and parents. Measurement and assessment practices with infants, toddlers, and preschoolers with and without special needs, fidelity of intervention implementation, and issues related to the impact of poverty and depriving environments on child outcomes and school readiness. So as you can tell, we have a very wonderful group of presenters with us today, and I think we have a lot to learn from them. So I'm going to pass it on over to Heather and Dale to get started with their portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Claire and Janice, for that introduction. Educare of Kansas City is one of approximately 20 Educare schools in the National Educare Learning Network. Collectively, Educare schools serve as a model of the impact of high-quality early education on the school readiness and future outcomes of vulnerable young children. This slide shows the core features of the Educare model. Each Educare school implements a number of common core features while also delivering a model of services that meets the needs of the school's local community. These core features are organized into 4 buckets or categories as shown on this slide. These include data utilization, which we will discuss in detail today, as well as high-quality teaching practices, which includes high staff-child ratios, small class sizes, and continuity of care, embedded professional development, including high staff qualifications, reflective supervision, and interdisciplinary approaches, and intensive family engagement, including starting services during the prenatal period and on-site family support. As I mentioned, data utilization is a core feature of Educare schools and a particular area of emphasis at Educare of Kansas City. This core feature encompasses research-based and data-driven practices. Each Educare school is part of a research program partnership at the local level. Each school collaborates with a local evaluation partner to collect data for the national evaluation and to inform ongoing programming at the school level. The purpose of this research program partnership is to support data-informed decision-making and continuous quality improvement at and among 3 different levels: the child-family level, the program level, and the agency level. Dr. Dale Walker is going to talk further about the Research Program Partnership Team and its work at Educare of Kansas City.
I'm pleased to be able to have this opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm Dale Walker from the Juniper Gardens Children's Project, and we're a research program that has been part of the University of Kansas, the Institute for Lifespan Studies, and is part of the University of Kansas, and we are all part of the Children's Campus as well. So we are co-located here in the inner city of Kansas City with Project Eagle and another agency as well. We have been here in this area of Kansas City since 1964, addressing issues that were important to this community and nationally, in particular with children who come from poverty backgrounds. So our research partnership with Project Eagle and Juniper Gardens and the school district partners here in Kansas City has been ongoing for really approximately the last 25 years. So it's a long-term partnership that has taken many forms over the years. In our current role as the local evaluators in partnership with Educare Kansas City, with my colleagues Dr. Jane Atwater, Jeannie Schiefelbusch, Yolanda Tapia, and Martha Martinez, we work closely with the Educare staff of Heather and Jessica and others here to conduct the evaluation of Educare. And this entails a close partnership in which we collaborate to select measures associated with desired outcomes for children and families. There we go. And we facilitate data sharing to increase data use and inform planning for individual children, classroom improvement, and strengthening parent involvement. And we've developed ways to facilitate that sharing that includes having joint staff meetings between evaluation and education teams in which we review data, discuss data, and make plans for how the data may inform classrooms and parent involvement. Also, this entails measuring implementation fidelity, which allows us to more closely monitor the level of delivery of content to children, and sharing data permits adjustments to be made to make sure that the important content is really being delivered. And working together, we've developed the format and content for this data sharing that includes data sharing reports for teachers and for parents that we'll be illustrating during this talk today. The data reports that we have developed represent different forms of presenting data to stakeholders. For instance, we have parent reports that share with parents information about their children's assessments and progress and areas of strengths and needs. Classroom reports of children, assessment scores, and classroom environment ratings to give us ideas about the strengths and needs in classrooms over time. And summary information about specific aspects of programs and children's progress. We also share data in terms of annual reports and reports that go to the National Educare Learning Network, as well as we contribute that information with the partners that represent the other Educare schools as well. So data, as Heather mentioned, are an integral part of the Educare Learning Network, but they also have really formed the basis for our partnership here. And Jessica is going to talk a little bit about how those data are shared in terms of feedback loops.
Hello, thanks Dale. This slide is a visual picture of our agency's data feedback loops. Each area of the research program partnership is represented: child and family, program, and agency. These three feedback loops connect together to show how our program collects, analyzes, and shares data between the classroom, program, and agency.
We will be discussing each feedback loop in detail during our presentation. I'm first going to focus on the child and family data feedback loop. The majority of the data that informs this loop is the child data. We use child data to inform our daily practice in the classroom and when working with families. We collect a wide variety of child data. Classroom teachers observe children throughout the day when they are engaged in play and classroom routines and document their observations either with pencil and paper or electronically. In addition, teachers take videos or photos of the children during classroom activities to use for later review. Teachers use this documentation to assist in planning and to share with families. Artifacts such as writing samples or drawing samples are also collected and used for documentation. In addition to those, teachers conduct regular developmental screenings on all of the children in the classroom. Examples of these are the Ages and Stages questionnaire and the DECA social emotional screening. Those screenings, along with the individual growth and development indicators, or IGDs, are used to monitor each child's progress. Our last bit of data is completed by our local evaluation partners. The evaluators use norm reference program monitoring measures such as the Bracken and TLS, the preschool language scale. These measures are used not only for individual child planning, but also for program evaluation purposes. In addition to the child data that we collect, we also collect data from families. Educare family support staff and classroom teachers work together to collect this data. Teachers complete an initial interview with families to help inform the teachers about each child's individual needs. These interviews are completed in the home and provide a time for the parents and teachers to start building a relationship. Family support staff conduct regular screenings for protective factors. Teachers and family support staff observe and document parent-child interactions and use this information to help support the family when goal planning. Lastly, parents are interviewed for fall and spring surveys and exit surveys. These surveys collect information such as family demographics, family well-being, and family literacy activities. Now that we have discussed the different types of child and family data that is collected, we will look at how the teachers use the data to inform their practice in the classroom. Teachers and master teachers organize the data in different ways depending on the type of data and its intended use. This slide lists some of the ways we organize data. Each child has an individual child data chart that tracks their screenings and assessments. This chart is all-inclusive and provides a picture of how the child is progressing developmentally across all domains. Each classroom has a goal chart that has each individual child goal listed on it. This chart is used during planning time and is a nice way for teachers to quickly see all of the classroom goals in one place. The classroom data chart tracks upcoming and recent screening and assessments and is used by teachers and master teachers for classroom planning. Lastly, each child has a portfolio. The portfolio contains copies of screenings, assessments, and has anecdotal and photo documentation of the child's developmental progress. The portfolio stays with the child the entire time they're in the program and is divided up into our curriculum's core areas. This portfolio is shared during conferences, and parents get to keep the portfolio when their student leaves our program as a way to document the learning that has happened while they were here. All of the child data is used to create individual child goals. The goals are aligned to the curriculum and program school readiness goals. Individual child goals are reviewed on a weekly basis, but often do not change every week. Goals may be adjusted due to progress or new strategies might be added. For example, if a child is working on walking as a goal, the classroom teachers will review the goal during their weekly planning time and look at their observations from the week to see progress the child has made. Depending on progress made by the child, the teachers will then either adjust the goal or add new strategies to help the child obtain the goal. So if the child is standing but hasn't taken any steps, the teachers might add in some new strategies for them to hopefully help the child achieve the goal in the classroom. The child family data is reviewed at least weekly by all classroom teaching teams.
Teams have ongoing data dialogues using the data charts discussed in the previous slide as their guide. Classroom teachers meet weekly to plan for the upcoming week. At this time, individual child goals are reviewed. Teachers share their observations and reflect together on video and photo documentation and discuss any new assessment and screening information. All of this information is processed by the group and is used for classroom planning. For example, if John's goal is to use a spoon at mealtime, the team will look at this progress from the week based on observation and documentation. They will discuss new strategies and will update the goal. If John had a recent screening completed that showed he was needing additional help in fine motor, the classroom team would talk about ways to include activities in the week's lesson plan that would allow him to practice skills in this area. Teachers also meet monthly with master teachers for reflective supervision. During this time, classroom and child data is used to discuss the teacher's teaching practices and to help make connections between practices in the classroom and concerns the teachers are having. Data dialogues are not only happening between teachers during weekly planning and between math teachers and master teachers during monthly reflective supervision, but also between a multidisciplinary team at least twice a year. Teams meet for child and family review prior to parent-teacher conferences. The team consists of classroom teachers, master teachers, family support advocates, health and disabilities coordinators, and the site director. Prior to child and family review, teachers and family support advocates complete a data chart for the child and family. The chart gives the most recent screening and assessment information for both the child and the family. Additionally, the chart has a place for the child and family's strengths, areas of development, and any concerns. The group spends time reflecting on each family's data and discusses ways the program can support families through any needed areas of development. Child and Family Review is a good time for program staff to come together and share family information. For example, when classroom teachers have a developmental concern that they are seeing in the classroom, the family support staff can share anecdotes from parent-child interactions from home visits. The team can use these observations combined with the data to discuss a possible referral and then put together a plan for supporting the family through the referral process. Data dialogues are not only an essential part of our program internally, but also externally. Data is an important tool for engaging families. Using data supports all of the Educare core features, including intense parent engagement. All of our families know that ongoing assessments and data sharing are a part of our partnership between the program and families. We work to foster a culture of curiosity among staff and parents through the use of data. As parents become more comfortable with data, they learn to see themselves as interventionists and become confident about their influence on their child's ongoing development across all domains. We work to be intentional introducing parents to our child and family data and the assessment process. We do this in a variety of ways. First, we create a data sharing expectation. Parents are informed about data collection and utilization during orientation, and then again during the parent-teacher interview. Parents come to expect data during conferences and know to bring up these kinds of questions when we meet for conferences. In addition, our assessment process and data sharing plan is included in the parent handbook. Teachers and family support staff spend time with parents during enrollment reviewing each assessment tool and giving parents an opportunity to ask any questions. We encourage parents to be involved in the data collection process. Parents are encouraged to share observations with teachers and support staff. Often parents provide anecdotal observations from evenings or weekends to the teachers about the child's progress on a particular goal. For example, if the child has a communication goal, mom might share how the child made the ma sounds over the weekend with the classroom teachers. The teachers will then take this information and use it when they're planning for goals. Parents also provide documentation in the form of photographs to the classroom of the child to show the child's work or progress. Often parents see teachers using this type of documentation to show learning and start doing the same for the time the child is home. We'll show some examples of documentation later in the slide,
But our parents are really starting to pick up on this as part of the way that we share learning, and they have also been sharing learning with us in the same way. So they'll bring in pictures from the weekend and talk about progress that the child has made during that time. Parents are also able to be involved by completing surveys, interviews, screening measures, or being play partners during assessments. Sharing data with our parents is beneficial in many ways. Data sharing helps foster ongoing partnerships between families and staff. Having a data discussion between the parents and the teachers really helps build the relationship. It provides an opportunity for the families and the teachers to celebrate the strengths and success of each child and parent. Data sharing also helps inform the goal planning process for the child and parent. Parents and teachers are goal planning together during parent-teacher conferences, so this also encourages this process. By sharing data, we are able to identify strategies that will help support the child's development at school and at home. It helps inform and support referrals to other resources that might be needed. Data sharing really empowers parents to ask questions about their child's development and progress. We have families that are used to getting data regularly during conferences, and they come prepared with questions about their child's development. These parents are comfortable talking about the assessments and asking questions since they have been informed about data from the start. Lastly, data sharing promotes school readiness. Parents that are used to receiving data from our program will be familiar with this process when their child starts school and they start receiving assessment information from school programs. When we share data with parents, it is always in conversation. Observations and anecdotal data is often shared daily during drop-off and pickup times. This is a time for parents and teachers to briefly discuss how the child is doing and for teachers to give a quick update on goal progress. During quarterly conferences, screening and assessment data is reviewed more in depth. Child portfolios are shared and parents are given opportunities to ask the teachers questions about any concerns they may have. During these quarterly conferences, parents and teachers are also looking at assessment data and screening data and the child portfolio and making new goals for the child for the upcoming months. Data is also shared during home visits. Family support staff and teachers take the opportunity to share any updates with parents and give parents time to share observations with the team. When parents are given any of this data, they are never just passed it in their cubby or handed it as information for them to read later, but it is always in conversation with a classroom teacher, so that way parents have an opportunity to ask questions and teachers can really explain the information presented to the parents.
So here's some examples of some of the tools that Jessica has described for sharing data. So we'll go ahead and just give a few examples of those so you can have a little better idea of the format that's used. So for the parent report, that includes the assessment information. And again, then teachers sit down with parents and share this information with them a couple times a year in this parent report format. Assessment graphs aren't just left in their cubby, of course. They are reviewed, they're part of this process, and parents have really come to enjoy seeing data, and in fact, if there isn't a graph or maybe they think it's missing a point or something, parents will really ask about that. So they very much want to see the graphical information as well as the written information. And the child portfolio contains, as Jessica mentioned, the teacher observations and assessment and goal information in a really interactive and kind of dynamic way, showing activities that are ongoing and really giving really a visual representation of children's learning. So a quote from a parent, every day I learn something different about my son and how to be able to help him. We have many such quotes from parents. So we have some examples, and I think these are made larger on your screen. Here's an example of a report for parents, and there'll be information about the assessment, about the purposes of assessment, again, who's doing the assessments, just as a reminder, and then assessment scores. So what you have here is just an example of some assessment scores over time, and so that also gives parents kind of a running record so they can be reminded what the child's scores were previously. And then these scores are reviewed with parents in a way that they very much understand. We're not sure what happened there. We weren't touching anything. There we go. That they very much understand the score ranges and what that means. And that discussion really has become a very important part of teacher meetings as well. And so having all these different formats has given our staff here, the partnership staff, as well as parents, lots of information about how to really review strengths and needs and to permit parents to be a part of that process and that discussion. And they really feel informed because it's not only anecdotal reports, but they're also a part of that data sharing process. And so another example of information that's shared in graphical form are the IGD, the Individual Growth and Development Indicator data. These are shared with parents in the report and also more frequently by staff, as these are given quarterly. And so parents can see their child's individual progress over time and in comparison to normative information or not. Some of that information, these can be very much individualized for parents. And so some of the normative information can be turned off. And so you can get a good picture of a child's personal best. Our program here serves really diverse children, and children with and without special needs, and children from a variety of backgrounds and language backgrounds as well. And so it's really important for staff here to have the ability to really individualize the information that goes to families and make it relevant for those families. So those are two examples of some information, and then now we have Jessica will review some of the portfolio information.
So this slide is an example from a child's portfolio. This would be shared with parents during parent-teacher conference. The portfolios are split up into our curriculum's main developmental areas, and so as you can see from this example, it is communication and language. All of the portfolio documentation includes a picture and then typically an anecdotal note that states where the child, any developmental progress they've made over time. So this particular child was working on communication goal of multiple word phrases, and this child is a dual language learner. And so the teacher talked about how the child was providing new words in the classroom, and she took the picture when the child shared the word banana with the classroom for the first time. And so she's just kind of documenting this moment in time and then having it so she can share it with the parents down the road. And then additionally, it's going to be included in the portfolio to be kept for the child's whole time here. And so just kind of showing progress as when the child was first learning to talk, as now she's forming words. And then down the road will be additional documentation when she is making more multiple word phrases. The next slide is examples of documentation from our program's hallways. We use documentation to show learning in our classrooms. You can see this throughout the hallway, and depending on the classroom, it'll be kind of a different, more individualized documentation. Lots of times this is pictures, some anecdotal notes, lots of quotes from what the children were saying during the pictures, and then there are sometimes drawing samples provided. This panel on the right shows documentation from the classroom that was talking about fish, and they had named this fish Bubble Pop. And so there are a couple documentation panels just showing progression as the children learn about the fish and kind of guess about what the fish are doing. And so the teachers wrote all of that information down to share with parents so that they can see it when they come and visit and read about what the children are doing in the classroom.
Okay, so we'd also like to share a little bit about how we use data in our program at the program and agency feedback loop. So Jessica and Dale both spoke about how we use that data about the child and family with parents to engage them. But we also use data to inform a number of other things in our program, and we involve parents in those types of planning activities. So we engage them with our aggregate program data. So just to highlight a few of those, all of the data that we use to support our work with children and families also supports our ongoing planning and sustainability efforts. This slide here indicates many of the areas in which we use the data to guide our decision making. I'd like to first highlight professional development and give a few examples around that. Data reports are used to support the focus of reflective supervision sessions between master teachers and teachers, and reflective practice groups between master teachers and individual teachers or classrooms. They are also used to inform the annual program-wide professional development calendar. One example of this would be our program's decision to focus on intensive program-wide professional development and strategies around language and literacy development in this coming year, based on our review and discussion of aggregate child language data this past spring. Another example around professional development would be Jessica's work as site director and the master teacher's work with our mental health consultant to look at what topics need to be addressed individually in classrooms based on observation, based on information from parents, and based on the DECA IT assessment scores. Another example of how we use data at the program and agency level would be the use of data with our Parent Policy Council, which also engages them in program planning. We shared with them this past spring summary data from parent interviews that indicated parents would like to remain involved with the program after their children leave. This has in turn led to the Policy Council working with program staff to develop and plan for an initial meeting of a parent alumni group. In addition, we used data that we had and feedback from parents through the interview process, and knowing the areas that families had identified needs and needed additional resources, and have established an on-site family resource center that will have topics that rotate through those areas that we saw in the summary parent data from their interviews. And then another area that I might just mention is to determine what our needs are as far as the environment in the classroom, and to help guide our decisions about supplies and materials in the classroom based on the data we receive back from the environmental rating scales. On this slide, or on the next two slides, we have highlighted specific examples of data that we use to inform these types of program planning efforts. This includes ongoing observations of the classroom environment and instructional practice, which is done by the master teachers. It includes observation checklists of the classroom environment and teacher ratings of child behavior, which would include things like the infant-toddler environmental rating scale, the early childhood environmental rating scale, and the class observation tool. And these are done 2 times per year. Some additional examples would include classroom reports of children's assessment scores and of classroom environment ratings, summary information about specific aspects of the program and children's progress, and summaries from parent and staff surveys collected for national evaluation purposes by the local evaluation partner. And in the picture here you can see a master teacher working with a teacher to review some of those summary data reports and plan around that information. So Jessica will now share what one of the classroom reports might look like.
This report is an example of a classroom report that is shared with classroom teachers. This report lists each child in a specific assessment. Scores from the fall and spring are given. Teachers use this to inform the planning process in the classroom. This information is also reviewed by the site director and master teacher. If there are concerns about a particular child, a team uses information on this report and additional data that we have on the child to discuss the need for additional intervention. So for example, child 1, the scores from the fall and spring are in the red this year. And so we would look at their other language assessments and screenings that we have and decide if this is a child that we need to provide additional support for. If we need to talk to family support staff to see if there's something going on at home, then we need to bring the parents into this conversation. And so this is just an example of one of the reports that we use to help classroom teachers, master teachers, myself, and family support decide, do we need to make additional supports or interventions in the classroom, or children developing as they should be.
And some examples of ongoing use of program and agency data are staff discussions and planning sessions, certainly, that have been described. We also have a monthly research partner meeting, and during those meetings we discuss data. We pick a topic, a specific topic that the group has decided on, and so the group includes administrative staff, research staff, master teachers, the home visiting staff, and school district staff. And so we have broad representation at that meeting, and that's important because we are we're looking at data, a specific topic, and then talking about how those data impact different levels of the program and how they might impact work with families as well as the transition into school. Data then are also shared in quarterly governing body meetings and during annual program and evaluation report generation. We also share these data with legislators in Kansas, for instance, when there's been important legislative decisions that were being made and when representatives asked for data. And we were able to provide aggregate data or summative data to them to help inform their decision-making process. Sometimes successful, sometimes not in Kansas, but it has been very helpful, and they too have reported that. The research partnership has really been important at times also to inform funders about progress and areas of need, as well as keeping the school district informed about what's children's progress and what's happening in our local area related to programs serving children with special needs and with other challenges, because there are often, as you all are aware, certainly resource issues that these data are so important for informing. We also have a few examples here of some data slides, and these would be used in our annual reports, but also to discuss at meetings, at that monthly meeting in particular, but also in the meetings with, Jessica would be going over these with and the master teachers with the classroom staff in addition to that individualized classroom format report that she also showed. And so these data are really important in this form to give us information about, for instance, this slide showing the toddler class averages across school years gives us information about what class data has looked like over years and what areas there may be strengths in, what areas there may be need for more programming decisions. And here's another example of a slide with some of the class data. And this one would be a good example of highlighting areas of strengths and areas where there may be benefits from more programming emphasis, let's say on feedback and language and other areas to facilitate learning and development. And then similarly, this slide, just with the ITERS and ECRS data, averages over the school years, can give information about, data, the general ebb and flow of data across the years, but also where there may be strengths, where there may be, downturns, and then we can tie that sometimes to influx of certain children, a new class of children, a new a group of perhaps emphasis on an assessment that has changed emphasis in certain components, which is what happened this last year, and this reflects that. And so, and also teachers. And so these data are important to see it in this aggregate form as well and give us a quick picture. And then on this slide showing those, the Deborah, the DECA early childhood assessment data, this can give us information about understanding the needs of incoming children compared to those who have attended Educare for a year or more and had some time. And we see real differences in this slide very clearly across areas with children who are new to Educare and those who have had some experiences in Educare. This slide being examples of data that can help us understand the differences that home language status can have, that home language status can make for children. And for instance, here what we see is the importance of, for instance, having more than one source of data for children because the PPVT given to Spanish-speaking children here in English clearly shows that there's a need for those children to continue learning vocabulary and learning words in English. But for those, that same group of children, we see that they are progressing in terms of their native language on the preschool language scale. And again, these are just quick examples of data. Now, these data are not shared ad nauseum with parents. These are data that are used in those monthly meetings to inform the information that is shared with parents and that is summarized in those reports. Because of course, we wouldn't want to inundate parents with lots of numbers and graphs and kind of summative information like this that wouldn't have a direct bearing on them distilling that information down for their child and for the experience that their child has and the types of things that they can do in homes. And so that's important to realize too. So as we show you all these data, remember these are not all things that are shared right off with parents. And so certainly a number of lessons learned in this collaborative work that we do here in this partnership. is that intentionality is really important in determining our topics for our meetings, to be when we made the decision to hone in on particular topics that the data were showing us. It made our opportunities to collaborate far richer and really collaborative, that all partners in our monthly meeting, the classroom, the researchers, administrators, the school district partners, really all had an opportunity then to share in those meetings. And we certainly know that that we have found that the research program partnership can foster interaction in which we're reviewing data and daily practice and sharing then that information with families about children, about the program. Policy council groups then have an opportunity to weigh in on and understand some of the data and the progress that the program is making. So parents certainly are eager and interested in reviewing and discussing data results with teachers, and they really are able to articulate and support the goals for their children as a result of having that opportunity to be a part of that process. So that's the end of my remarks there. We have our contact information here, and you're certainly welcome to contact us with any individual questions too.